Okay, Councillor, we're live now. It's 7 o'clock.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all been keeping safe. This meeting is being recorded. It's open to public and press. If you can keep your mics off until you have to speak, it sort of saves a little bit as we're going through the meeting. Any apologies for absence, Jenny?
Thank you, Chair. We've had an apology from Councillor Fletcher, apology from Councillor Haigh. Councillor Van Day is supposed to be substituting, but at this time is not online as yet.
Okay. Okay, we're quorate anyway, Jenny, aren't we? We're fine.
We are, Chair.
Yeah, so we're fine. Okay. Minutes of the last meeting, has everybody read? Has anybody got anything to say on them? They're not quite accurate or nothing from anyone? Okay, Jenny, it's fine.
No hands, Councillor, sorry.
Okay, thank you. It's all right. Thank you. Items of urgent business, I haven't had any through to me, so there are none. Item 4, are there any declarations of interest from anyone?
No hands, Councillor.
Thank you. I don't know whether we should say that we're on the Community Safety Partnership, Jenny, whether that makes any difference. I wouldn't think so, to be honest, but...
Okay, is it just yourself, Councillor, or...?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Okay, I can add that on,
Yeah.
and then...
Okay, thank you. It's best to be safe than sorry. Okay, item 5, Thurrock Community Safety Partnership update is on page 17.
Michelle, can I ask you to introduce the report, please?
Thank you and good evening, councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to present the work of the Community Safety Partnership in Thurrock. As the report states, the crime levels this year have been severely affected by the pandemic, and so the report is focused this time on activity rather than data. With the lack of credible data that we've had to hand to support a review of our priorities, Community Safety Partnership Board have taken the decision that our agreed priorities for this year will remain the same for next year. Just going to summarise very briefly against each of our priorities some of the key activity. Violence against women and girls, clearly going into the pandemic, was one of our big concerns that we would see a dramatic uplift in domestic abuse. This has been seen across all our agencies, in particular our housing safeguarding team. Our service delivery has continued to provide support for all the victims, and you'll have seen numerous campaigns both nationally and locally encouraging victims to come forward and report and to be reassured that they are free to leave their home, to travel and to seek refuge. Our training has successfully moved online, and we've actually delivered more training sessions than were planned, and we've been able to extend this out and include members of the community within our J9 training. Moving on to gang-related violence, the injunctions have continued to be enforced by the Operation Raptor team, and there's been 2 further injunctions served. Our gang and child criminal exploitation role, which was funded by the council for 1 year, has now been recruited to permanently. It's embedded within the Youth Offending Service and is focusing at the moment on mapping local risk and contextualised safeguarding, as well as providing support and intervention for those at risk. Our operational GRV group has continued to meet monthly and identify those at risk of gang involvement and provide appropriate action and intervention. Localities work funded through the Violence and Vulnerability Unit has been developed and is working in Grays, Tilbury and Purfleet. Hate crimes continue to be a key priority for the Community Safety Partnership, and we had a number of concerns that we would see an uplift in relation to Brexit. I'm pleased to report that hasn't materialised, although we have seen across the year a steady increase in hate crime. We've continued to increase the numbers of hate crime ambassadors in Thurrock and now have 224 people to encourage victims to come forward and report. Our Stay Safes that we've always run every year aimed at learning disability is now being developed by Thurrock Lifestyle Solutions into a virtual online offer. This year we had a new priority for the Community Safety Partnership of modern day slavery and human trafficking. We're a key partner within Portswatch, which is now called Op Bluebird, and was established by the District Commander in response to Op Melrose. The aim of this work is to improve the intelligence picture and in particular to harness community information. Crime Stoppers are launching a national campaign on this on Monday. We've had a soft launch in Essex for the last 2 weeks. Antisocial behaviour has seen a huge increase during the pandemic. Much of this in relation to people reporting breaches to the police in relation to COVID and against guidance. Neighbour nuisance has also been seen as an increase across all agencies and partners, particularly because people have been at home more, children have been in flats, etc., running up and down, and we've had complaints about that. Some of that there is very little we've been able to do, but we've supported where we can, and we now have an antisocial behaviour officer funded by surplus funding who's been able to support people in non-council tenure. Motorbike nuisance continues to pose a challenge to the borough. Operation Caesar, the police operation to tackle this, was funded up till September, and they continue to address this issue. Target hardening has been reviewed across the borough as well to limit opportunities. One of the consistent challenges that members and residents have told us about over the years has been in relation to 101. You can see from the information that's been provided within the report that improvements have been made to this service, and the chat facility has now been introduced. It's now on us to try and encourage residents to report and tell us what's going on in their communities so we can address it. Essex Police have invested in community safety and engagement officers this year, and we have 2 in Thurrock who work closely with the Community Safety Partnership and have still been able to engage with residents and communities through a variety of ways. So they did an online Q&A session in Tilbury. We've been working closely with the resident engagement team. They've attended Youth Cabinet. We've got our independent advisory group to Essex Police has continued to meet online, and Essex Police have established a diversity challenge group. Tackling offenders remains another key priority for the partnership, and all the criminal justice services have continued to deliver interventions throughout the pandemic. I won't touch on the prevent priority because there's a separate paper on that. Moving on, one of the key areas for work in the next year is that, subject to being passed later this year, there's a new duty for local authorities in response to the Domestic Abuse Bill. We will work to ensure that we meet those duties, but we've got in a very positive position in Thurrock in relation to safe accommodation along with support for victims. The funding that's been provided by MHCLG will enable us to expand our training offer and support for victims and establish a central forum to give victims a voice. Just going to hand over now to Phil Carver to cover off some more of the key points in relation to environmental enforcement and ASB. Thank you.
Phil?
Thank you, Michelle, and good evening, councillors. Yes, the environmental enforcement team have been actively working in partnership with the police, and some of the activity that it has been involved is joint patrols enforcing the PSPO in Graystown Centre in respect of street drinking, late night canister operations, issuing community protection warnings and community protection notices, and issuing fixed penalty notices for those who dispose of the canisters illegally. Also, joint patrols with police in hotspot areas. We've also been conducting patrols in terms of Halloween and bonfire nights, specific operations with the police for that. Again, partnership working with the police and with our internal cleansing team to crack down on graffiti in the borough. This has led to one arrest of a prolific graffiti offender, and that was in connection with aggravated graffiti. We've removed 2,000 tags, and again working with the police regarding the lakeside PSPO to process fixed penalty notices issued to boy racers. So these are some of the things that we've been working with. We've definitely increased our partnership working. We liaise with the police, share data on a weekly basis, and our plans are to continue to do that. So I'll take any questions around environmental enforcement if there is any. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. It's a good report, Michelle. Thank you for that. As I've spent 5 hours on the police and fire and crime panel this afternoon, I'll probably add all this again. But it was very good, actually. Most of it was on the budget, but we get a lot of stuff before that. So, but it's really, really good. It's nice to see the communication between Phil and his team and the police. There's good communication there. So, and you know me, I like the communication effort in all the council and all the council to join up with each other. I think it makes such a lot of difference. Is there anybody got any questions? You see any hands, Jenny?
No hands at the moment, Councillor.
You've done so well, Michelle. Very good. Well, if there's no questions, we'll go to the recommendations. Recommendations 1.1. Cleaner and Greener Safer Overview and Scrutiny Committee note the performance of a Thurrock Community Safety Partnership for the year 2020 and support the retention of the 5 priorities of the Community Safety Partnership for the year 2021, which are to tackle violence against women and girls, tackle violence and vulnerability, and local community and visibility. 4, tackling offending. 5, counter extremism and terrorism. Everybody happy with that? Yes. Thank you. Sorry about that. There's so many bits of paper in front of me. Next item is item 6, Community Safety Partnership report on Prevent is on page 41. Who is on?
Phil, are you going to present this one, please?
No, it's
yours?
me again,
Oh,
Jenny.
sorry. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Phil can do it if he wants. Thank you. So reason for this report was that the Home Office have recently published a handbook for elected members providing clear guidance on the role of local authorities in relation to the Prevent duty. And this paper seeks to enable you to scrutinise the delivery of Prevent in Thurrock and to ensure that we are fulfilling our duty. As you will be aware, the threat level was increased in November to severe, meaning that an attack is highly likely. This was on the back of events across Europe and no specific intelligence in relation to the UK. And certainly Thurrock is at no greater risk than anywhere else. But it does remain as a priority for the Community Safety Partnership, although we are not a funded area for Prevent. To just give you an idea of the structure and how the governance for Prevent works, we have a Prevent Strategic Board, which meets quarterly and is chaired by the Assistant Director of Housing. This reports into the Community Safety Partnership, which the portfolio holder sits on, and receives a situational risk assessment report quarterly, as do the Directors Board now. We have a channel panel in place and that meets monthly. Our strategy was published in October, laying out the key areas of focus for us and follows the national themes of identifying the risk, safeguarding the vulnerable and managing the risk, which is through our channel panels. Underpinning this is an action plan that's in place. The action plan is partly driven by the local self-assessment that is detailed within your report. The three key areas identified for Thurrock to develop and improve on are developing our links into the communities. We have reviewed and updated our internal venue and speaker policy, and the next steps is now to review that and enable us to share it with community groups, licensed premises and education establishments. Obviously this will be done when the time is right and not under the current restrictions that we're in. And the third priority is for us to promote ACT early. The Home Office have reviewed their communications and have launched the ACT Early website. This is an excellent resource aimed at families and friends to enable them to be able to identify people who may be at risk and to the actions to take. There's also a good number of case studies on there to make it come alive as to how you might identify this in your community. We've continued to deliver a programme of training online monthly through the our learning and development team. One of the key areas for members to be aware of, and sorry, I'm just going to switch on to a report, is the new channel duty guidance that was published in November last year. This outlines some of the key practical requirements for local authorities in relation to channel, including ensuring we have a designated channel chair and deputy chair who both have the core competencies in place. To ensure that channel is embedded within our local governance arrangements and our constitutions. To ensure that we've got data protection information notices in place, and the guidance introduces arrangements for monitoring local compliance with channel and reporting back to the Home Office annually. Whilst the assessment documentation is awaited, I would like to assure members that we have an appropriately designated chair and vice chair in place, that the chair has the appropriate security clearance and has completed all required training. Our panel does meet monthly and has appropriate representation from across all our partners, and that governance is in place through the Prevent Strategic Board. And I think that was all I was going to say on that report, and I'll take questions if that's all right, Chair. Thanks,
Michelle. I've only got one question. Are these you say there's two boards, or is there only one board set up with a vice chair and a chair?
Right, there is a channel panel which meets monthly, which reports into the quarterly Prevent Strategic Board. So the channel panel is very operational. That hears cases that have been referred through pre-criminalisation, and people that are taken to channel must have agreed to engage in the process. And what happens in that meeting, all relevant agencies sit around the table, bring all the information with regards to the person which is shared, and then appropriate actions are put in place. There are a number of intervention providers that are funded by the Home Office, and quite often somebody there would be brought in. We actually have very, very low referral rates in Thurrock to channel panel, and one of our key focuses is to increase those referrals. We're not the only place. Essex is low in channel referrals. Education are one of the biggest referrers nationally. Sorry, if I lose you, my computer's saying it's going to shut me down. So that's the channel panel, the operational that meets monthly. Even if we don't have cases, sometimes they will meet because a case has to be heard every 6 months until it's fully closed. So it can be, an intervention could be put in place, but it would be brought back in 6 months' time to review. There's very strict guidance on how often those reviews are in place. The Prevent Strategic Board is about the delivery of the wider aspects, so the training, the communications, the engagement. And then that, as you know, because you sit on the CSP board, is summarised and fed up into the Community Safety Partnership for their awareness and oversight of the whole process. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
Yeah, because that's obviously we've got members sit on that board as well, don't we? So it's me. Just the worry is that perhaps some of this is not fed back to other members, because we have 49 of them, and if this is not fed back properly, it might be something that we could feed back on. Probably too late for February council. Well, I say that. It might be good just even a small leaflet for the full council or something, just to let people understand what we're doing, because then they can be more aware out there. You know, if they see something they're not sure of, they've got somewhere to go. That's my only concern. If you can do something in that vein, Michelle.
Yeah, I did. I think I attached it, the pledge card that was developed by our members working group, which was aimed for all members. So just 5 key points to look for and how to report. So all members should hopefully have that. We can send some more down to chambers if not.
It might be good just to put it in front of Michelle.
We did offer out training to all members. I think there was 10 people attended that a couple of months ago. So yeah, we can resend those.
Yeah, I think just to put it in front of them again, you know, when it goes on an agenda, sometimes if it's sent out, that goes into a pile, and at least if they've got it in front of them, it might make them think twice. So, as you say, we're not on a very high risk. We are severe, but in this country, we're not perhaps at risk as we might be, especially with a pandemic that's on at the moment. So I think that's something that could go out. Yeah, I haven't any more. Councillor Kent.
I want to pick up on the training point. Michelle, during the presentation, you said that there's monthly online training available. Can you tell me who that's made available to and what the take-up is, please?
It's through the learning development team. It goes out to schools, partners, but obviously internally to all professionals.
So not available to elected members?
Yes, quite happy for elected members to come on that. That's not a problem at all. Very welcome to.
There's a difference between members being welcome and members being invited to take part. So I think members should be invited to take part. As a school governor, complete prevent training. I have to have it demonstrated. It has to go in the file. So if and when the school is inspected, that's on file that I've completed that training. I think there is, in some people's mind, a fundamental misunderstanding of what prevent is and what prevent is there to do, what the intention of prevent is. And I think it should be incumbent on all elected members to take the training. I think it's something that should be compulsory as an elected member, in the same way as it is for school governors. I think there is a debate now within the council about where the prevent agenda sits, whether it still sits with an informal kind of working group of members and this committee, or whether a new committee is formed. I think before we move to make decisions like that, we need to ensure that every elected member understands what the prevent strategy is and what their role in it should be.
Couldn't agree more. We have offered 2 sessions out to members. So there was one at the end of last year delivered, and we've done one previously, but we can put on more, and there's no reason why you shouldn't attend the sessions that are put on during the day as well by Learning Development. So I'll take guidance from Democratic Services how you want that done, but happy to support that.
Michelle, I think I've done one of them, but I don't, as Councillor Kent said, I don't think it's put out to us as elected members, you know, 49 of us. I don't think it's put out there enough, really. And I think that's why I said that something should go out in full council just to remind members. But I think there should be something for just members to do. You know, as Councillor Kent said, it's better to be invited to something than it is, you know, the other way. So we should be in the loop, really. That's what I said. It's all right having all these boards, but as you know, some councillors do sit on it, but then that information doesn't spread out. You know, it doesn't go out to everywhere. So I think it's something that we should, you know, take on board. Thank you. Anybody got any other questions?
Councillor Kent's got his hand up. I'm not sure if that's from before or a new question.
Kent?
You're on mute, Councillor Kent.
I'm on mute because I didn't want anybody to hear me. I would go further, actually. I think we should add recommendation 1.5, which is to the effect that this committee recommends that all elected members undergo the appropriate prevent training.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't necessarily think that hurts. As I was going to say mandatory, but I think perhaps it should be, you know, because there'll be a lot of members saying, oh, they don't need to go on it or don't do it. Or
happy to defer to chair and have it as our recommendation is that it's mandatory.
Mandatory. I think it should be, yeah, because I think it's something we, you know, I hear things on a police and fire crime panel that you don't hear in the normal way, and I think this needs to be with all members. All members need to know. So I would go that far. If Councillor Kent seconds that, that's fine with me. Are there any more questions at all?
No more hands up, Councillor.
No more hands up. Okay, thank you. Recommendations, we probably all can read. I'm not going to read them all out. 1.1 to 1.5 for. So we're going to add that in. Is everybody happy with that? Making the training mandatory, so that we all do it. Yeah. So that 1.5. Michelle, you happy with that, Jenny?
I have, Councillor. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Is everybody happy with that? Yes. Yes from everyone. Okay. Thank you. Next part of the report is item 7, contract renewal for litter enforcement. Are we with Phil for this?
David first, I
That's
believe.
me, Chair.
David?
Thank you,
first.
Councillor
Sorry,
Riddle. Okay, yeah, good evening, members. So this paper outlines the proposal for the council to re-tender for its bought-in support services that assist us in meeting our objectives to improve the environment and neighbourhoods for our residents. The current contract commenced in December 2017, and that was following a initial 12-month pilot. Obviously, the service for us has seen significant improvement in our posture for environmental crime, and specifically targeted to improve our deterrence and response to the criminal offences of littering. But in essence, the contract brings us more eyes and ears on the ground in our communities to protect our residents with a reduced financial risk of us expanding the staff footprint ourselves. I'm going to hand over to Phil now, who's got specifics about the performance of the contract to date and also what we intend to do with any future tender of a contract for the same service. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm not sure if everyone can hear me. Okay, thank you, David, for that. In terms of performance, and looking at what the current contractors are assigned to work to in terms of littering and enforcement of the Grays Town Centre PSPO in respect of street drinkers. We can see that the contract's working well. Keep Britain Tidy inspections show that there's a decrease in litter in the borough. The current contractors play a vital part in that by enforcing offences on persons who litter. Another example is the PSPO street drinkers in Grays Town Centre. That's reduced significantly, albeit that there's a current pandemic and there's a lockdown, but even before that, you could see the reduction in street drinkers. And that's as part of the contractors who currently go out and patrol with the in-house environmental enforcement team and the police. Another example is we can look at, in terms of performance, we can look at over last year, the contractors issued 3,522 fixed penalty notices, as in the report. They received 504 representations. 294 of those representations were not upheld, and 210 were upheld, where recipients of the fixed penalty notices came forward and produced evidence whereby a decision was made to then cancel the fixed penalty notices. So you can see there also there's a fair process. And looking at the 3,522 fixed penalty notices issued over the last year, there's only been one fixed penalty notice that's been revoked due to officer conduct. And I'll make that clear that it was a new officer. But still, that's quite an outstanding record, and it shows good performance throughout the team. We've also pulled on the contractors' resources in terms of the pandemic, and we've asked them to patrol parks and open spaces with our environmental enforcement team to offer government guidelines advice on social distancing. So you can see there's benefits there as well. We also have another example, and I don't want to go on too much about the examples, but another example of why it's working well is in terms of the current graffiti that we mentioned a bit earlier. The actual officers have been going out and they have been patrolling. They actually assisted in that arrest with the prolific graffiti offender. So the performance, we're quite pleased at the way that's going. In terms of standards and Thurrock Council's values, we expect any contractors to meet our in-house standards, as the current contractor signed off at the start of the contract and assignment instructions. This includes issuing default notices, and that's in line with where standards are not met. For example, that could be for non-attendance, it could be for complaints, it could even be for not being in full uniform. In terms of training, what we would expect if we were to go out, if it was approved to go out to contract again, we would expect that at the very least they are qualified, as the current contractors are, at an NVQ level 2 and 3 in customer care and enforcement. And with that, we expect, as they do now, a 2-week on-site training session before they go out alone and start patrolling. We conduct spot checks on the contract's performance, and we have monthly monitoring contract meetings where we discuss performance and any standard issues. So if we were going to go out to contract, we'd be specifying enforcing, all absolute offences, including fly posting, graffiti, littering, enforcement of the PSPO in Grays Town Centre, any dog control orders that may come into force, and any other appropriate offences which are absolute offences which are not investigative. An example is they will see an offence on the spot and deal with that there and then, as opposed to any form of investigation. So that's it in a summary about performance and standards. So I'm happy to take any questions if you haven't. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
Councillor Kent.
Kent? Councillor Kent? You're on mute.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right.
I've got one question arising from Mr. Carver's introduction. Part of the way through, Mr. Carver spoke of the council's posture on environmental crime. Could you just elaborate on what you mean by that?
Sorry, Councillor Kent, I was referring to the performance. I don't believe I used the word posture. Could you be more specific as to what the question you're asking, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it may have dropped out for a moment, but I'm pretty sure you were speaking about the councillor's posture on environmental crime. I don't know if you meant the council's position or the council's approach to environmental crime, the council's view of environmental crime, but I just like you to elaborate on it a little.
Okay, well, in terms of enforcement of environmental crime, and under what the current contractors do, it's a statutory offences that they deal with. In terms of the PSBO, we do have a process that they have to follow in Greystown Centre for Street Drinkers, and they work in line with our process that was written by Thurrock Council. In terms of littering, it's, as I say, it's a statutory offence, and that's what they've got to follow in terms of the statute. Hopefully that answers your question.
Are you quite happy with that, John? Or not?
That'll do.
Yeah. Okay.
So Councillor Rigby's got her hand up.
Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's just a few questions. How many contractors are there, and generally how often do they go out on patrol, and what areas are covered? And how do they actually get the sort of littering offenders? Because unless they're caught in the act, is there any other methods on CCTV, or how's that done by?
Okay, thank you. There's only one contractor at the moment. They have morning briefings. They are assigned to hotspot areas, and that could be by a number of complaints that we receive. We will ask them to patrol in those areas. No, we don't enforce in terms of CCTV. We don't have that facility. And quite rightly, as you put it, that they would need to witness the offence there and then for them to be able to interact with an alleged offender.
Phil, does that mean with the new contractor they will have cameras?
Well, no, it doesn't entirely mean that, but you know, there are new models whereby I understand some of the new contractors out there do have cameras, and that was something we can look at.
Yeah, I think we should actually, because if there's no point in going out there if we've not got. It's a bit like the police, isn't it? They have their cameras on. Our enforcement officers have cameras on. So I think you've got cameras, haven't you? You use? Yes.
Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Are we talking CCTV or are we talking body-worn cameras? Sorry,
Cameras.
body-worn cameras.
Yeah.
Sorry, I do apologise. I picked that up incorrectly. I thought we was referring to CCTV. I do apologise. Yes, all our internal and contractors do have body-worn cameras, and they are activated at each interaction with an alleged offender.
Yeah. Getting back, you just brought up my second question. CCTV. We seem to have a bit of a glitch on getting CCTV cameras where that we know there is. I've got one in my area, which we've had I said to you the other day, with a housing giving a letter out, has caused a fly tipping area which we didn't have before. So to me, sometimes that is a bit of not joined up with environmental and housing, not joining together. You know, it's caused a problem now. So and we've got it again today. One lot's been shifted and we've got it again today. So whether they think the dustmen will take it away or the refuse collectors will take it, no, they won't. So we've got another problem there, but I'll speak to you that offline. But just about how many cameras have we got, or have we got any in situ that we can put out anywhere?
Okay, I know that we have, within environmental enforcement, we have 4 mobile cameras, but I don't know the answer across the council.
No. Okay, that's something we can take forward then. Okay, has anybody got any? Councillor Kent.
Yeah, I think the decision we've got this evening really boils down to 2 options, doesn't it? Nobody wants to not have an enforcement team. I think that's case proven. I think we've seen benefits, so we would want to continue with it. So the choice, I think, comes between retendering for an external company to come in and run it, or to move it in-house. I'm disappointed that the case that's been made for in-house is as weak as it is, and doesn't talk about any of the real positives you can have. Positive in terms of having more flexibility because you directly employ the staff, in terms of a better deal for those people that you're employing, those people having a greater allegiance to the place and the people that they work for. It also gives us the possibility of just softening the approach a little. Far too often, and every elected member here has had it, we know of examples where these enforcement officers have gone after the low-hanging fruit, gone after the easy tickets, because that's what gets results, that's what gets them paid, and we know that they're encouraged to do it. We've seen stories recently of elderly people misunderstanding what the rules are, and then kind of being fined for that. I've had people complaining, especially during pandemic, that they've gone to recycle clothes, to drop clothes off at clothes bank, in supermarket car parks, to have teams of enforcement officers waiting there to nick anybody that's going to those clothes banks because they haven't been emptied and people have got no option but to put clothes by the banks. I don't think that's good enough. And I don't think that's something that would happen if this was an internal team, if this was a directly employed workforce. And finally, we just need to look at whether we can use them as a force for good. If somebody's dropping a cigarette butt, then public health surely tells you that we should be trying to give them people some information on how to stop smoking. If we're then going to be writing to them, we should be taking the opportunity to give them some information and some help to actually stop smoking, not just fining them for dropping the cigarette butt. And having said finally, I'm going to say another thing. We spoke about training. I raised this with the director some time ago. I was walking home from Grays one day and was approached by an enforcement officer who told me that it only just started and was lost. I had no idea where he was. You know, I had to turn him around and walk him back into Grays. Now, that's just not good enough. You wouldn't have that if this was a direct workforce. So my plea would be that we go for or recommend option 2 and not option 3 when we come to consider the recommendation. And I would hope that everybody would agree that the recommendation, as it currently stands, just isn't valid. It says, recommend to Cabinet to delegate the authority for the tender and subsequent award of a new contract for environmental enforcement services on a payment by results basis. It doesn't say who we're delegating it to. That surely just isn't a competent resolution.
No, I take your point, Councillor Kent. I would have brought that up as well. I think it doesn't say anything. If I probably feel if we tendered out for this, the contract went out, who would be in charge of the tickets when tickets were given? Would that come back in house?
So in respect of the issue of the tickets, it would be a percent. If we're referring to payment, it would be something that we'll be looking at as a percentage. So obviously, in terms of what I mean, the current situation is that we receive we pay £42 for each expenditure notice that's issued.
We pay £42.
Well, it's a percentage that we that the current contractors receive, as in a report, £42 per ticket.
As Councillor Kent just said, that could lead to people just being charged out in the street, whatever, couldn't it? Just to get a ticket.
Well, no, that's not the point of that's not the point of this. The point is to stop envirocrime. The point is also more than ever now, with the spread of the pandemic, even dropping a cigarette butt, it's quite serious, you know, under the current circumstances, and we're trying to stop that. I have turned around and said that where persons have made representations, you know, there's been some which have come forward with justifiable reasons, and they have been revoked. It is a fair process. I'd be very interested to learn of specific locations or officers that you feel are targeting certain individuals. I don't know of any, but if that was to come to me, I can assure you that would be investigated. And as it stands, you know, I think they are working well. I take Councillor Kent's point that he's raised.
If we go out to tender, sorry, if we go out to tender, sorry, Jenny, I have seen David's hand up. If we go out to tender, we go out to another contractor, how many more officers would that mean we'd have out in Thurrock than we've got now?
If we went out to tender, it would be the same, again, Form 1, so it would be 1 supervisor and 4 officers.
Okay. So no,
and that's what it currently is now.
Yeah. David?
Thank you, Chair. No, it's just to respond to Councillor Kent's questions, really, and Phil has covered a lot of that. I mean, all of the issues to do with complaints about specific recipients of FPNs, we have a very structured complaint system, and certainly if it originates from a councillor, the service managers inside the council directly employed respond to those and deal with them. As Phil said, we have body-worn video. That's our requirement on whomever we instruct to take over that service. That enables us to scrutinise the action they've taken, quality check what they've done. Is the activity lawful? And we always and will continue to retain control of that. And that isn't subject to change with any new tender or any contract going forward. I suppose the other point that, as Phil raised, is all of these offences are criminal offences. They're a statutory code that defines how they are committed and what our response should be as investigating agencies. And we take that very seriously. And as Phil said, discarding a cigarette in the street may seem little, and it might just be smoking and trying to reduce someone's addiction to smoking. But actually, in a global pandemic where the contagion can be transmitted through spit, that's quite a serious matter. So we take that very seriously. We don't remove the risk based on that. We're equal with everyone, and we expect those standards to be maintained. And that's something that we would also continue through any future contracts that we seek to do.
Yeah, I understand that. I think that's only right. In this pandemic we're in, it is very dangerous to do that. But the people that do that probably don't think of that anyway. Councillor Kent.
I wasn't suggesting for one moment that it wasn't something that was serious or something that should be ignored. What I am suggesting is that there should be some flexibility built in. If you've got a young person who drops a cigarette end or a toffee wrapper, surely it shouldn't be beyond the enforcement officer to say, you've dropped that, pick it up, put it in a bin. You know, there should be a little bit of education going on alongside the enforcement. I think if somebody then refuses, of course you give them a ticket, you know, but I think there needs to be a little more common sense than sometimes there is. So I'm not suggesting that it isn't a crime. I'm not suggesting that we should turn a blind eye to it in any way, shape or form. What I am saying is that too often this external company that we currently have appears to go after low-hanging fruit, appears to hang around supermarket car parks waiting for people to drop something, rather than going after fly tippers, for instance, who are blighting the borough.
Thanks, Councillor Kent. David, do you want to come back?
Yeah, no, it's just in that particular point to do with officers in a particular location. As Phil said, we have to work intelligence-led. Obviously, our residents, our customers, our businesses in our area often make complaints to the council about a build-up of rubbish and offences taking place. And as anyone does, police included, we'll always try and target those areas to make sure that a proportionate response is taken with repeat offences or a build-up of those offences in a particular area. And again, if we get complaints about that activity, as Phil said already, we'll always look at those body-worn videos, we'll always interview the staff concerned, and if the representation was overzealous, then we'll act accordingly. And that's nothing that we would change with any enforcement activity that the council does. We'll always maintain those standards throughout.
Phil, can you just elaborate that if we're going out to, we've already got contractors at the moment, haven't we? What actual difference is going out for another tender going to really make for Thurrock?
Okay, yes, we have got a contract and it does expire this December. Well, it's based on what we've said already. We think it's working well. I've laid out I've given some points on the performance that the current contractors have been doing. We think it's working very well, and we see it as bringing in-house. There are high risks. You know, you have got to look at, for example, with sickness leave, absence leave. Should that happen if we were to bring it in-house, that would be a high risk for us. At the moment, we don't pay sick pay or anything like that, or NI, towards the current contractors' officers. So there are the benefits which I've mentioned, but there's also the high risk of bringing them in-house, as stated within the report.
So if we go out to another contractor, there's no saying that it's going to be any different to what we've got now.
Well, yes. Well, one of the differences, what I listed earlier, is that we're looking for them to deal with more offences, not just littering, not just enforcement of Greystown, PSPO in respect of street drinking. Want them to be involved in, say, fly posting, graffiti, if a dog control order comes in place. So, yeah, duty of care in respect of deposit of waste from commercial businesses. So that would be a bit of a difference in stretching out what their remit would be. But we want them to stick with absolute offences and not offences whereby they're going to be investigating.
Okay. Okay. I actually recommend to Cabinet to delegate the authority for the tender and subsequent award of a new contract for a mental service. It doesn't actually say who that is, does it?
No, it's
Chair, if I may, that delegations to officers to pursue that.
It doesn't say that in there, David, does it?
Reading it
It says
now, I can see that. Yeah, it'll have to be a
It says
note to the member.
environmental enforcement. It doesn't say who, does it? Perhaps we need an officer there or a director or someone in environmental services. It doesn't say, it just says new contract for environmental enforcement. How does everybody else feel about that? I mean, we are looking at another contract. Councillor Kent.
Yes, sorry. Two things. One thing that I should have raised, but I forgot. I can't find it in the report. The proposal suggests that whoever is successful in winning the tender, should we go down that route, will get an increased percentage of fines. Is that right? It suggests that it's been soft market tested, and as a result, the fee we pay would rise. Have I understood that properly?
yes, that's based on looking the increase of a littering fixed penalty notice from £80 to £150 since we started the contract. So there's been an increase basically, and what we've established is that out there doing some soft market testing, that no one's really conforming to the current pay or percentage split, and it's looking like most contractors are looking at 2/3. Thank you.
Did you still want to come back, Councillor Kent?
Yeah, please, if I can, because my mental arithmetic isn't good enough.
Right.
So at the moment, the company receives £42 for every 150 that's raised in charge, and they want to raise it to over 70%. So from roughly 40% to 70%. Is that right?
No, what we're saying, okay, so through the soft market testing and the also speaking with the current contractor, they wouldn't be willing to commit to the current, if it was to go out and they were to be successful bidders, they wouldn't commit to that kind of contract they've got now. What they are doing with most of their other boroughs is they take 2/3 of the payment, while the councils are taking 1/3. That's what information I was given. So,
Sorry, John. Go on.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, that does seem like a pretty hefty increase to me. Should the same company as we partner with now were to win the contract, and I would just remind everybody, of course, that were we to keep it in house, we'd keep 100% of the fine.
Yeah. Councillor Rigby.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, with regards to that sort of almost it's commission, I suppose, really, isn't it? Do they get an additional fee or payment, or is their payment purely as a percentage of the fines that they get, basically?
yes, absolutely. There is no commission at all, with the current contractor, and we would like to see that anyway. If we were to have any future contracts.
David, did you want to come in? You had your hand up just now. No?
Hi, apologies. Yeah, Chair, thank you. It was just in relation to the market movement, if you like, is the market movement by the providers for us brings a break-even cost with some margin for the council's benefit, but that takes account of the on-cost that we don't have to incur by having an in-house service, if you like, and the risk associated with pursuing criminal proceedings, for example. That risk is mitigated by outsourcing that to a third party. Secondly, the change from when we commence this contract that's current now to a new one is the value of the fine increased during that period, and that obviously wasn't taken account when the contract was initially let. So hopefully that clarifies the change in movement on the figures. Also, Chair, sorry, in relation to the recommendation, there is an error. You're correct on the part. It should be delegation to the Director of Environment and Highways. Apologies for that. I've just noted on my notes that I should have raised at the start, so apologies.
Okay, fine. It's all right. Well, David, perhaps you can answer this. The potential financial risk to us if we keep it in-house, it doesn't actually say what potential risk, does it? Because according to the I've got no page numbers, so I can't. You've got a graph which says that the current contractor, it doesn't look much different. Just want to know what the other potential risk will be.
I suppose the example we have now, which is very live to all of us, is the pandemic and the risk, the financial risk of us running a service similar to this. Obviously not that it's based on financial income per se, it's based on people committing criminal offences. The risk that comes from people being absent due to isolation, for example, due to COVID, etc., has been felt entirely by the contractor and not by the council. If we were facing a similar situation, then the service would be impacted and income would be reduced for the council if it was a in-house service. So that is entirely mitigated by the contract being let to them, if you like, and the risk, the legal risk of deploying officers on the street that are issuing fines is held entirely by the contractor and not by the person employed by the council. And that's why the margins are similar, but obviously you have that distinct difference between the two.
So that's why we've got no cost, no risk.
Exactly, yeah.
What's your view, Phil, if we leave it in-house? We keep it in-house.
Sorry, I've missed that. What is my view?
Just your view of leaving it in-house, as it, well, it isn't at the moment, is it? But if we brought it back in-house,
I think there's a number of issues. We look at on the paper, we look at the costs, and that would be a cost to us. The value of it going out to contract would be more beneficial in terms of income. And then we're looking at things like training and equipment maintenance costs, staff retention, redundancy costs. If it came to that, I've already mentioned sickness absence, dealing with conduct capability, appraisals. There's a lot of things that the council would need to do when we wouldn't have all of these responsibilities if it was outsourced.
if we weighed up, we would keep all the fines anyway, wouldn't we? We would keep, that would all stay in-house.
We would, but if you actually look at the paper, it will tell you that alone to employ the 4 officers, how much it would cost. And we wouldn't have that cost if it went out to tender or contract.
Sorry, Phil, the company that's got it now, contractors that got it now, they can still bid, can't they?
Yes, they can.
Yes. So is it 3 we have to go out to? Procurement, does that come into it?
Yes, it will need to go through procurement. I don't know if the rules have changed, but last time I believe it was the last meeting I was in, it was out to 3,
Right, yeah.
but I'm not an expert in the procurement area, so
Okay, okay. Sorry to put you on the spot. Just wanted to
No.
know your view. Thank you.
no, that's fine. Sorry,
Councillor
just
Go on. Sorry, Phil.
so I just wanted to say that looking at the paper, the in-house comparative and the projected service cost alone is 236,648.
Yeah, I'll take it on board. Take it on board. Councillor Lawrence.
I'm just thinking, considering we're not sure who the contract's going to go out to, and with the differences in the rises, which we'll be paying in like commission and things, would it not be an idea if we considered shortening the contract to 2 years instead of 4? And then if we was unsure and we wasn't happy, then we're not tied into it and we could make changes?
Yeah, I don't know of any. I mean, that's a good point, but I don't know of any contracts which which would bid for 2 years. I've not heard of that before. I don't know if you have, but normally it's around 4 years.
Well, I just think times are changing. There's lots of new things out there. We've got lots of new things ahead of us. So I think it might be an idea. I don't think the company's got anything to lose by it. And if they've got goodwill and they know they're going to succeed, I can't see why they would, say they don't want a 2-year one. It might give them something to keep in mind and make sure that their targets are on track.
Something we could put forward, Phil.
Okay.
It's worth as I say, I think it's 4 years anyway. A contractor isn't going to commit themselves to a short time, but as Councillor Lawrence said, perhaps this might make them stand up and do a better job. It's worth. I don't know what other councillors feel on that. Any views on that 2 year? David?
David.
Yeah, it's. I mean, to be honest. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, David. It's David DVD. I thought Councillor Lawrence's point was quite good. Why, I know you boys, you shrug your shoulders a bit, but 2 years contracts, they won't want it and all this. But money's money, things are tight. Surely it's worth considering anyway, isn't it?
The dog's giving his view, whatever. David, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from experience of contracts, particularly of this nature, they tend to back end the margins they do. So there's a lot of loss leading on the initial couple of years. So, so I don't see many or any contracts at all that are less than 3 years, if not 4, as the minimum, unfortunately.
Yeah. I probably think that too. So contracts we've done over the past. David, the other David.
Sorry, DVD. Yeah, do we employ them for any other business? This company, David, or
the current contractors are in contract to deal with littering offences and Grays Town Centre PSPO. They can. They have got delegated authority to deal with flyer posting, but that's quite rare that they deal with that, like graffiti.
Sometimes we take on work. I take on work. I don't necessarily want to do some of it, but I have to do it to keep in with the company to get the other work, the real profitable, easy work, shall we say. So, just a thought.
Councillor Rigby?
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering what hours the contractors work. Are they sort of 24/7? Obviously, to catch sort of drinkers and things, it's out of sort of working hours. Is there a sort of hourly week that they do, or is it just flat all the time?
Okay, no, they are. The way it works is they are 7 in the morning until 5 o'clock. They work Saturdays, but we have an agreement that in terms of, for example, street drinkers, or if there's a littering issue, that they'll be flexible to change hours, and they always have done. There's never been an issue with that.
Because we do twilight times, don't we, Phil? We go out, you go out twilight, because that's probably when most of the stuff happens, isn't it? After 5, you know, when the light's gone and it's in the dark, and right, nights are getting lighter now, but that's when most of the stuff happens.
Yeah, yeah, quite a good point. I mean, as I say, during the summer, we were having street drinkers, Grays Town Centre. They adjusted their times to finish 8, 9 o'clock. They're very flexible, the current contractors. And if we were to go out again to a contract, we would have that agreement in place, that flexibility.
Okay. I don't want to labour this too long because it.
There's no more hands, Councillor.
No, I just want to get everybody's views. I didn't want to. Has everybody had their say? Yes. No more to say on that. Okay. 1.1, is everybody happy within the report? Note that contained within the report. And 1.2, we're going to change, David. Yes. Is Jenny?
Yes, please, Chair.
Jenny?
Yes, Councillor, I've got that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Kent? Councillor Kent?
Yeah, sorry, I want my my vote recorded against recommendation 1.2.
Against what, John? Just against it altogether?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Is anybody else against it? No? Okay. Everybody for the rewording of 1.2 then? Okay. And Jenny, have you, Councillor Kent's view on that?
Yes, all noted, Councillor.
Lovely, thank you. Okay. Short one tonight, hopefully. Just the work programme, Jenny. We're obviously going into the new municipal year, aren't we? Whatever happens, whatever elections or not, or whatever, we're in a world of not knowing, aren't we, at the moment? So, Councillor Lawrence, did you want to speak? Sorry.
Yes, please, Chair. I know this is a really nice committee, so I'm hoping all the members that are on there this evening will try and continue to stay on here. And I want to ask you all if you'll continue on my behalf for me, because nearly 2 years ago now, I finally got it agreed that I could have 2 benches along Coalhouse Fort for the people who like to enjoy the views there but can't walk from fort to fort without a break. Well, obviously, COVID's happened and everything, and also we've had the subsidence of the path, which has been going on an awful long time. If you remember, Chair, I did ask about it quite a few months ago, and I got and I was notified, and to be honest, nothing's happened. One, we can't pay for it, and the landowner doesn't want to pay for it, and no one can meet in the middle. So obviously, this isn't going anywhere. So I'm hoping that during the course of this year that it might be able to be put on, to be brought back to discuss this properly, to try and make it move forward, because nothing's happening and the subsidence is getting worse. I know it's costly and things are tight, but this path is really beneficial for people, especially with the health and well-being and all the walking what everyone's been doing. People are really, really upset that they can't do that walk along there. So I would appreciate it if you'd keep it going for me, keep asking and pushing it, and also keep my benches and get them put there for me, because they was put aside for me and they're still not there. So please don't forget to do it for me and keep it going.
Councillor Lawrence, can I ask, have you got the benches?
Yes, I've got them and they're supposed to be in storage, but every time I hear someone's getting a bench, I keep asking, please don't let it be mine. They're supposed to be there, and I was about to find a place for them. I went out and I met up with them, and then all of a sudden subsidence occurred, and the whole path's been shut.
Sorry, it's probably not part of this committee, but do you know who's got the benches?
Yes, it was Jenny. Jenny no, it wasn't. It was, who is it I was talking to now?
You're being blamed, Jenny, for something.
Jackie? Is it Jackie?
Who?
Is it Jackie? On the Clean and Greener?
No idea.
I've got a name wrote down here. I'll find it for you in a minute. I've got it all wrote down. Bear with me.
Can you email me and I'll try and help you?
Yes, I will. Just please don't forget, get the benches up and get that path opened.
Just
We need to see
email me and get the benches up for you.
Done.
All right.
Okay.
Email me and I'll get on that case for you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Meeting ends at 8:15. And all keep safe, and I hope to see you in the next municipal year. Thanks, everybody, for
Thank
your
you, Chair.
input.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.